pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Guyer.
Here.
Trustee Spurling.
Here.
Trustee Bauman.
Here.
Trustee Youngerman.
Here.
Trustee Marisak.
Here.
Trustee Betzinger.
Here. All right, everybody's here today. Thank you. I should state that we are conducting this meeting remotely and in person, so we will have public comment likely from Zoom. But when we roll into public participation here, the first item, has anybody submitted any emails or anybody on the Zoom that's wishing to make public comment?
Nobody has submitted any emails or voicemails requesting to make public comment.
Okay. And is anybody on the Zoom wishing to make public comment? Yeah, I don't have. Okay, I don't have it on mine, so I don't know. All right, perfect. All right, is there anybody here in the audience that would like to make public comment? That's not on the agenda elsewhere? If you're on the agenda, you can talk elsewhere. Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and move on. Before we do the MEDC update, I do have, and I don't know if she has any idea that we're doing this, but I would like to, if you guys will indulge, present a plaque to Debbie, as this being her last board meeting. I don't know if you know about this, but, so Debbie's retiring. When's the actual date? Wednesday? Wednesday, so like, it counted down by the hours at this point. Debbie was, like many of you, probably the first person that I ever met when I became interested in local government and that kind of thing, and I've worked with her pretty much every week over the last several years. So, and if anybody else wants to jump in, the things that you, and the knowledge that you have and the things that you have your hands on in Montgomery, people I don't think really realize exactly how instrumental you are in basically everything that we do. So while I'm excited for you, I'm also really nervous. No, I'm kidding. But thank you for your service to the village. I know that you're a resident in the village. I know hopefully that's not changing, and you'll be around for the foreseeable future. So we just wanted to, 2000 and 2022. So we just wanted to present this to you, and then if anybody else has anything to add while I walk up.
I'll just say that you're kind of like a Denny, and I mean that in a good way. You've been around and you've helped a lot of us veterans on the board, and you know the history and the knowledge, and you tell us what to do. At least in the beginning, you made sure that I had my scripts and that Montgomery Fest ran correctly, and whenever we had questions, we would always come to you, and you'd have answers, and you were the glue that makes staff and this village board work. So I appreciate everything that you've done for us, and a happy retirement. And you are not going away. You're still going to be around a little bit. So
I love that you wrote in the notes, Debbie is retiring. That's all.
thank you.
So anyway, I want to read this to you, but I don't want to touch it. So with grateful appreciation for your service, friendship, and dedication to Village of Montgomery, 2000-2001. There you go. Fitting that it's probably one of the coolest plaques we've ever done, too.
Thank you, Debbie, for always, as Steve said, I've joked for years that you actually are the one who runs the village. We don't. You kind of help,
She
you do
does.
this with us and keep us in line and help guide us, especially when we're all new. And I think I said something to somebody once, that you're like that favorite aunt you have, that's always there to support you and help you and guide you and tell you when you're, I call it giving you the gibs, smack you in the back of the head and make sure you stay on track. So thank you for that, for always being there to help keep us going.
And if you ever need any help smacking him on the back of the head, just let me
There's a
know.
line of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick. I just, I remember when Debbie started and I don't know if everybody realizes just how much she did at one time when we were running lean there for a few years. Debbie did payroll, HR, workman's comp, Montgomery Fest, what else? She just did so much. It got to the point where when you would go to the hall looking for an answer, the answer was, you need to go see Debbie, because she did so much for the village. And I really appreciate everything you've done for the village and for me as a resident, as an employee, and as a village board member. And you will be missed, so.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I've
just-
really enjoyed my job. It's hard to leave because I've enjoyed it so much.
Just don't change your phone number.
Awesome, thank you. All right, item B for public participation this evening is the MEDC update. Shar?
I can sit down, yeah,
If you want.
now that's a hard act to follow, right, Deb? I remember when I first started, Deb's name was on everything too, from the MEDC. And it had you as, were you a secretary for the MEDC, or was that Anne Marie making you do stuff, or, you don't know? She was helping the MEDC, because her name was on a lot of stuff. So, I did not do a PowerPoint. I am just gonna speak from my heart. I hope that's all right. This is an actual update every 6 months. I usually do an update, so I'll be covering June from December, the last 6 months. Over the years, we've had a variety of ways that I've shared this data, sometimes quarterly, annually, sometimes pictures, statistics, and such. But the bottom line is, it's an opportunity just to highlight some of the activity that's been going on, as well as what we've done, and hopefully a glimpse into the future as well. June and July were hot, hot, hot. And I don't mean just the weather. It was crazy. We had interest everywhere. The state provided over 18 RFPs that we looked at. Those are leads that are coming in from Intersect, Illinois. We didn't respond to all of them, but that was quite a lot, probably the most I've ever seen in my entire career history. Normally you get a few a year. So that was a big deal. The important ones are the ones that have a broker attached to them. And those are actually, Tangent was one, the glove manufacturer, as well as Lion Electric were all projects that came through Intersect, Illinois, through a broker, and eventually we got 2 out of 3, so that's not bad odds. We've had interest in the JB properties, I call them JB, which is basically Hinchy properties. We even had a few people going after the same properties. We're still waiting on a few of them to see what's going to be renewed, who's going to close the deal. Again, just a nice opportunity to see the area cleared as well. Back in the day, AUCOT had nothing, you know, so it's a great thing to look at today. We've also had interest in the Frelk Farm, the shearing property, and even the Hammond property. So for just a few months of activity during those months, that's quite a lot of interest. August was a fun time for everybody. The grand opening for Gray's Mill Estates. That was an event that not only was done through the village, but also the chamber and the MEDC did that event together. And it was probably a 6 or an 8 week process as far as the opening, because they did some with the government, some with the local, you know, residents. So it was a really nice way to get involved in the community. It was also an opportunity to touch base again with the chamber. We were able to do that and work together. I'm already out of breath, I'm sorry. So September, we move into September, and one of my favorite times, the golf outing. New faces, good numbers, and over 100 paid golfers. Actually, I'm so sorry, August, we also have Montgomery Fest. So I kind of messed up these pages, I'm sorry. That was a fun time. We had Christina, and she had given me posters and tons of brochures. I was able to deliver those throughout Aurora, Oswego, and Montgomery, which I think was really exciting. I brought them to medical centers, banks, you name it. And of course, everyone put in a whole lot of time and effort during that weekend, including the whole new venue was just such a great weekend. And it was probably the first weekend I worked the entire weekend. Not day and night, but every day. So it was fun. We also updated our Montgomery trifold, added Bo Sonia and Christina. So, and we even updated the photos. Grace Mill always asks me for more. I've changed their photo a few times. Now we have a finished product on there, which looks really nice. The MEDC was also highlighted in the IEDC annual, it was just one of those things that they highlight, but it's not really so much about me, it's about name recognition for Montgomery. And so that was a big deal, because I know I probably got hundreds of emails on that one. We also had an opportunity to look at a ton of marketing opportunities. I'm sure that Doug was having fun with me on that one, because I had everything from getting our name on a Bears ticket to working with Buxton to software. Due to the RFP, we had an opportunity to look at options to see if we wanted to spend some more money on the marketing side of things. So I went through a ton of stuff with the MEDC board. We also had some changes on the MEDC board. Scott Vickers retired from Old Second, and he was replaced by Will Garsha. I know it looks like Garcia, but his name is pronounced Garsha. And we added some new board members as well, which then increased some revenue too. Earth Movers had a lot of changes, but Heidi jumped right in. She attended all of our events and not only participated in the MEDC, but also with the village as well. Earth Movers has always been a friend of all of ours, so that was good to see. October and November continued to be busy. We had numerous meetings, and again, the CAT property had a lot of interest, and that continued for quite a long time. As you know, in the last publication, 2.7 million square feet has been signed, and we still have more to look at. So the good news is we're not completely out of land. We have adjacent land as well, and we have new opportunities to look forward to. The holiday appreciation was fun. It was our first year we changed the area. We had it at Grace Mill, which was quite fun. I think it was the first time I ever closed a bar. Honestly, I swear, after our party was over, we brought it downstairs and we stayed till closing, which was fun. December was also another fun time, something that the MEDC hadn't done in the past. We did get involved with the Montgomery Festival of Trees. In fact, we actually had 4 trees, 3 inside if you had come to our office, and 1 outside. Although we didn't win any prizes, somebody told me I was close to second place. We did do some background stuff behind the website. Web Links worked on the background and making sure that we're seen and people can reach us. We've also had a lot of new clients, and by new, I mean new to the area, new to Montgomery, some from the St. Charles area, Batavia. JLL has actually looked at 3 different deals with us, and so again, these are all positive things. I even had a call one day where Jim Miller was excited that in the United Facilities property, he was able to secure Hormel with 100,000 square feet. So although it's just warehouse and distribution, it was still name recognition, and it was an opportunity to bring another Fortune 100 company to Montgomery. Coming soon, we'll also have a fairly large property, 171,000 square feet available. JLL has secured that listing, and that is the Home Depot at 1000 Nell Street. They have another building being built. As most of you know, we were working on trying to get them to add additional land in Montgomery. Even the broker said there was nothing that Montgomery had done that couldn't change that. In fact, it made no logical sense to the brokers as well. But it's a beautiful building, and we have almost a year to get that filled. So they're still in there, but they expect to leave around November, December. And I'm also working with the railroad because there's several people that are interested already in looking at that property as it is rail served. Kind of jumped over the rail too. I was looking through my notes as I was going through statistics to give you this report. I probably talk to Eric 3 times a month, every month, for the last 6 months, because there's at least 9 different projects that are rail served. So again, I think it's been a great time for Montgomery. The industrial base is growing. It's been a good time for warehouse as well. Some articles say it's like the best in the century. I'd say at least the last 2 decades, but as far as Montgomery goes, we've had a lot of activity, and I expect a lot to be done in the next few years as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions. If I missed anything or jumped over anything, let me know.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to put my name on here? No.
Okay, moving on from public participation. Item 5 this evening is executive session to discuss litigation where the Village of Montgomery finds that such action is probable or imminent pursuant to 5 LCS 120/2C11. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Betzinger? Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman?
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
All right, we'll be back. And move into the consent agenda. I'll read the items and entertain a motion for approval. Minutes of the village board meeting of January 10th, accounts payable through January 20th, accounts receivable report for December of '21, appointment of Mr. Jeff Zofel to the AACVB for a term through June 30th, 2024, and then ordinance 1942, reducing the number of Class K liquor licenses, waiver first, passage on the second.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Betzinger? Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman?
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. The first item for separate action this evening is A Resolution 2021-020, approving a conditional grant agreement with Gray's Mill Partners, LLC, pursuant to the village's Downtown Mill District Restaurant Incentive Program. This is the Phase 2. We tabled this from December 13th, and Mr. Baum, I know, is here with us this evening. Welcome. I know Phil is on Zoom, or was, and I believe you
just
have a
moved him over.
PowerPoint. Welcome.
Welcome, thanks for having us.
No problem.
I think Phil's gonna give a presentation tonight, so we'll hopefully he's on Zoom.
Okay.
If not,
Getting it loaded here, hopefully.
I'm here.
And we can hear you. And you can see the PowerPoint, Phil? Oh, never mind.
Not just yet, I gotta share the screen.
There we go. That's nice.
Okay. We have it up
Are we-
as a presentation up on our
Are-
screen. Oh, good, you have it on yours too. So we can hear you, you're good to go.
Are we good to go? Can I get started?
Yes. You know what, Christina, I'm not sure he can hear us. Can you just tell
All
me?
right,
yes?
well, thanks for having Mike and myself here tonight. Well, not really here, but close. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Gray's Mill tonight and kind of give you an update on things. Of course, we were established in 2020. Yeah, can you go back to the first slide? There we go. If you look at the history, and the reason Mike and I and Brian were interested in the property is really because of the history. And, you know, it was built in 1853 as a mill. It's had several owners, from the Pink Cup to Jason's to the most recent South Moon. By the time we got it, I think everybody kind of knows what shape it was in. But more importantly, we got it because of the history and because of Mike's and Brian's ties to the community. And when you look at the initial concept, if you go, yeah, there we go. We were looking at phase 1 and phase 2. And originally phase 1 was going to be the speakeasy, the first floor, which would be the wedding space, and the second floor. And then we were going to do some minor changes on the outside, and, you know, cut some trees down and spruce it up on the outside. And then originally we were going to go out the back with a 2-story addition as phase 2. But as we got into it and looked at everything, we kind of looked at the project differently as we got into it and realized that maybe what we wanted to do really was to try to move part of phase 2 into phase 1. So we decided to not only do the speakeasy and the wedding area, but we decided to go ahead and do the Baum's Beer Garden in the back. And our original estimate for the whole project in the first phase was $590,000. And you know, for a number of reasons, it ended up being about $1.2 million, which is about 622 over what we originally had planned. So obviously we had to, you know, to infuse some cash into the project, and which is what we did. And if you look at our kind of our exterior improvements, what we really wanted to do was put more money into the beer garden, because, you know, once we remove that smoker from the back and all the fencing and all that, if you guys remember how bad it was, you know, you know, Mike and I remember him and I sitting up against the building saying, you know what, this is a gem. We just got to figure out how to make the thing shine. And so we decided to put a lot more money into the beer garden, do more landscaping, the siding and maintenance, of course, we were going to do, and of course, the roof and signage and everything that goes with it. But if you look at all these pictures, like the Baum's Beer Garden, originally, we were just going to put in 30 grand. But man, that space just spoke to us, and, you know, we ended up putting in a couple of pergolas in the bar and a fancy, you know, live edge tables and seating and all those kinds of things. So, you know, we spent over 350 just in that particular area when we originally were talking about 30,000. And then if you look at the results, you can remember the smoker there and compare that to the pergola. the fencing, before and now, all those kind of changes as you see. It's hard to now remember what everything used to look like. But as we did it, for example, landscaping, we saved a little money there, but by the time we got to landscaping, I don't know if you remember, but everything was short supply. We couldn't get anything, and my crew ended up doing some of the work itself. I think we had a quote for 80 grand to do the bricks, and we spent about 4 days doing it ourselves so we could make up the difference, because we wanted something to really look spectacular, and we'd rather spend the money for the professionals to do the plantings and the staging of the limestone and some of those other things. So we actually saved some money on that, but got more for our money because we did a lot of the work ourselves. And I think the before and afters kind of look at it, kind of explain it a little even better. And then you can see in this picture where we did put the holes through the back of the building and had the rear exit. And at that point, we kind of made a decision that when you look at this patio, that's where the new addition was going to go, to the east of the building toward the river. And we really said, why are we going to cover up this beautiful space? Let's fix up that space now and keep it there, and then move the addition to the parking lot south of the building and move the silo next to that. So that was our decision to do that, really was to, so we could really spend the money for that outdoor patio and the outdoor beer garden, spruce up the pergola, and all those kinds of things. The good news in all this is that when we did the exterior siding and maintenance, before we did the roof, we did that first thing, and that was when plywood siding was not $80 a sheet, it was 20. So we lucked out and we came in pretty close to budget for that. But then and you can see the before and afters for that. The roof was kind of a lot more expensive than we had thought for a couple of reasons. Number one, once we got into it, it was a lot worse than we had thought. But that's when, I don't know, I think we put up 60 sheets or some ridiculous amount that was, they weren't $28, they were $70 a sheet kind of thing. So we spent a little more on that, but as you can see, the results were, it's worth it. And all these kinds of decisions we've made all along because, we don't want to just, the building means more to Mike and Brian and myself than just the building. And then, of course, we put the signage in, and that's a big improvement. And then we moved to the phase one of the interior, and that included Danny Boy's Speakeasy, the kitchen, and the restrooms. And then we made a conscious decision there at the same time to do more. I don't know if all of you have seen the bathrooms, but the original bathrooms were pretty small, and we were going to do a simple facelift. But once you get into it, you realize, well, you can't put a Band-Aid on something like that. So we spent more to do that. We spent more for the special event space. And as you get into it, it's an older building. We built the bar, put the ceilings in for the second floor space. And now the difference between, what it was and what it is today is significantly different than what we had anticipated. And then you look at the kitchen, that was the biggest thing about the kitchen was it was in pretty good shape. I'm showing you the picture of the dishwasher because that's the little monster that cost us the most, because for some reason they didn't have a booster heater in there for their dishwasher, so we had to spend about another $30,000 for that to get that put in with the big breaker you see up there pictured on the right. So at least we know the dishes are clean and sanitary coming out of there. And then the bathroom, that was very small. We enlarged it, made it ADA, and spent about 40 grand more for that because we decided to go ahead and take it an extra step and move the bathrooms, the toilets and the urinals and everything else, and where they really should be located, if that makes sense. So overall, there was a combination of a few things, but, our estimates in the different areas, came in, overall about $620-some thousand higher. And it was, a conscious decision for us to put more into the building. So we improved added the beer garden to phase one. We did the exterior siding and the kitchen and the speakeasy roofing, landscaping, and the restrooms. And this kind of gives you a pie chart of the breakouts for the expenses in the different areas. But you can see we spent a lot on the beer garden, that's for sure. So this kind of analyzes, basically it shows you that, we spent the 200 grand in the original grant. And then if you look line by line, you can see that our original estimate was at 592, came in at 1.2. So we put in $622,000 more into the project than we originally planned. And because, not only are we invested in the building itself, but we're really invested in the community. And so we participated in the Montgomery Fest, and that was a lot of fun. I brought my grandkids, and we enjoyed ourselves, and we were in the parade and all those kinds of things. Then we did the ribbon cutting, which was great for the economic development in the chamber, and we had all our family, and Mike had his family there, and I was there, and our family. We also had our first annual Oktoberfest, including Fraulein's and Lederhosen, and German hats and German beer and food. And it was a great showing for the first year. We participated in the tree lighting, gave away 500 cookies to a lot of families in Montgomery. The biggest success we've had so far was the Santa's breakfast. And basically that first floor, we turned into a winter wonderland, and we had Santa there, and we had a magic show. And it was really a lot of fun to see all the kids there. And on the second floor, we had a big breakfast, and then down below we had Santa talking and to each of the kids, which is a lot of fun. And then in 2022, this year, we've added our local jam. So we have a jam session hosted by Paul Straits every week. And that we've had our second session last Thursday with it's been very successful. And then we have open mic comedy. And it's the first time I've ever tried comedy in any of my locations, but it's really been a lot of fun. And we've had our second session for that started. And of course, the beer garden is fully open in the summertime. And then we've implemented the tasting series, and our next one coming up is in February 5th with Bob, who's here tonight. And we're going to talk about whiskey, and we're going to pair that with different foods. So we're going to continue that throughout the year. In March, we're going to do the Irish whiskeys. And so we're just doing a lot of these seminars and tastings so we can get new people into the building. So if you look at our phase two, because we've kind of moved things around a little bit so we could accomplish a little bit more. Since we moved the building, the addition from the east side to the south side, that building has gotten bigger, and it's gotten a lot more complicated because of that, because we're still going to do the retractable roof. So because of that, we're going to need some time to do, and it's going to take a lot of engineering, it's going to take more steel. So our plan really is to bump in a phase 2.2 and build the silo, because the silo itself is on site right now. And it's a simpler build because we're using, poured concrete and it's much faster build. We're pretty close to finalizing the drawings. And of course, Bob has his, the inside of the silo all drawn out. So we're good with that. So we really want to do the silo because we can do that fairly quickly. And that'll give us time to focus on getting the building addition built properly and built the way we want to build it. So it's going to take, time to kind of, to make sure the Army Corps approves it, and the storage for floodwaters, engineering, permitting, the silo foundation, construction, all those kind of things are going to take some time. So our goal really is to open the silo in the fall or sooner. And then in the summer of 2023, then we'll have the event space in the location where, we think it makes more sense because we can hold more people and we really don't cover up any of the beer garden or that outdoor dining because, once we put that in, we realized how beautiful that space is against the river and against that Montgomery Bridge. It's a sight to see. So if you look at it, Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, I used to go to Greenfield Village and Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn. And, I admire both of those individuals. And Henry Ford once said that coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. And, I think that we have a unique situation here where we have a couple of investors that are very invested in Montgomery. And we have Montgomery that's looking for somebody like us to kind of be the dynamite to take this project and downtown, make it a big success. So we hope to continue to be a big part of that. So tonight, what we're looking to do really is, because we made a significant investment in the beginning of phase 1, phase 2 really is going to take, some time to get it right, because that addition to the south is going to take some engineering, some architecture, and it's pretty complicated. And we've pulled in some additional help from another architect who has a lot more experience in commercial development like this. I pulled in the guys from Indiana to help us too as well with the retractable roof and kind of change things to fit a little bit better in that area. So really, we're looking to spend, a significant amount more for this second phase as well. And, we have a lot of engineering, architectural, and planning and, time. So we really would like to get the grant, before we finish the project, because we're really putting a lot more money into it. And so I want to see what we can do to get that situation resolved.
All right. Can you hear us, Phil?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I think if I were to summarize what you've been able to do over the last year in that building is probably some of the best work that we've seen in that building in the last few hundred years. Huge improvements to the skeleton of it, and then also the appearance of it to make it functional and kind of fit the dream that you have for it. So I do appreciate everything that you've done, Mr. Baum, the Dolans as well. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? You can step up to the mic if you do.
Yeah, it's hard, I fell on,
Okay.
I can just sit here, but we appreciate the support we've gotten. We've really felt palatable help.
Recording in progress.
Danger. Am I all right?
Yeah, you go ahead.
And we like being in town. It's kind of fun to be here at the beginning. So thank you very much. I think to get to the chase is that the addition, as Phil mentioned, is going to be much, much, much larger than we thought. It's going to be, I mean, it's going to be clandestine. It's going to be unbelievable to be 30 feet up over the river to see the dam and the bridge without a roof and walls. I mean, there's nothing like it. It's going to put Montgomery on the map. And we want to do this right, but what we're really asking for today is that the silo is attached to the attachment. We want to build a silo now before the building is built, so we have a summer of revenue coming in. So with your help, getting the grant early, the silo can begin, and revenue can begin, and visitors can come in. Otherwise, it's a wait for another year.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. So the item on the agenda today is the resolution approving the conditional grant agreement, which is the Phase 2 grant. Any questions or comments from the board? As drafted, as I'm sure you saw in there, the grant will be dispersed at the execution of this agreement. Any comments or questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved by Marisak, second by Bauman. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Betzinger.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
And that carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil. All right. Moving on to item B this evening is Resolution 2022-001, approving a conditional grant agreement with Bumar, doing business as Shufeld Whiskey Company pursuant to the village's downtown Mill District grant, restaurant incentive program. Sonia.
Yes. So we have before you, based on your recommendation at the last meeting, the grant agreement for the Shufelt Whiskey Company. This is for $55,000 that would be issued at the time of building permit for the build-out of his space in the silo where they are proposing to be located. This is requested that it be approved, subject to attorney review and finalization, as we do still have some exhibits regarding collateral, et cetera, that need to be finalized. So we would just ask that it be subject to that as we work on getting those final things put together before we execute the agreement.
So if you could just put that in your motion,
Yes,
if you
sir.
make one.
Would you like the motion?
Sure.
So moved, subject to attorney review and additions.
Sounds
Second.
good. Second by Youngerman. Any further discussion? Debbie?
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Betzinger.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
And Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Thanks, Bob. All right, rolling into item C for separate action, ordinance 1952, amending the village code section 3-9 for, is this for a liquor license? Right, it just doesn't say that that's the liquor license area. So waiver first, pass it on the second for liquor license.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Betzinger.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer. Trustee Spurling. Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
And that carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, thank you. Item D this evening is a task order number 2. This is approval for the rehabilitation of well 4. Engineer Wallers?
Thank you, Village President Brawley. This evening, staff is asking for approval to execute task order number 2, which is the further repair of, further elements that require repair at well number 4. The pump and motor column piping has been extracted. Lane has completed the inspection report, and there are several items that need to be repaired and/or replaced. We're asking the board for some flexibility in executing the task order so that we can determine based on delivery times whether or not we need to select a certain item or whether we'll have additional time to select perhaps a less expensive item. So the cost is, range is $129,170 to $188,370. And we'd like the authorization to proceed with task order number 2 within that cost range.
So do we approve this with a range, or can we just approve it not to exceed that higher amount?
It's your pleasure.
I
I
just-
think if you want to set the upper limit, and then we'll report back to you as we proceed.
Motion to approve, maximum 188,370.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? And then you'll report back the final amount?
We will.
All right, call the roll.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling? Yes. Trustee Bauman?
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Betzinger?
Yes.
All right, carry 6-0, thank you. Item E this evening is a PSA with EEI for the Mill Street Bridge improvements and lighting construction and design engineering, the amount of $138,132. Jeff?
Thank you. In 2020, there was a bridge inspection report. What's in front of you here, the PSA would allow EEI to do the design work and everything to fix the things that were found in there. Additionally, besides the repairs, this would involve adding lighting to the bridge. We talked about in the past, a lighting element on the arches, so this would include that also in the design and construction engineering. Pete could answer any detailed questions you have.
Are we expecting the work to be completed before Montgomery Fest?
That is a schedule that we've set. The only thing I will say, Trustee Spurling, is that, again, if it's a supply chain issue with delivery, that might change it, but our intent is to do all the work prior to Montgomery Fest.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm guessing we haven't ordered the lights yet, or have we?
We have not, because we
You gotta design it first?
need to engage. We're utilizing a subcontractor, Alfred Benish, who's the bridge contractor for us, or designer, and we want to use their expertise to make sure we select the best lighting system that's available.
Okay.
A comment and a couple of questions. Can we make sure that we try and push this through to see if we can't get it done before Montgomery Fest? That would be awesome.
That's the intent.
That's the plan.
Second, with the lighting underneath the arches, do we have the ability to turn that off for like when we're doing fireworks and that sort of thing?
Yeah, the system, we've looked at one system, and again, we want to confirm that it's the right selection, but it would have the ability to change colors. It would have the ability to be turned off or turned on, depending on, what was going on at the time.
And my last, if I remember correctly, beautification's not doing flowers on the bridge this year because of the construction that's going to happen?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just another thing, we're also evaluating adding an additional, changing the parapet wall on the south side so that if we do put vendors there, we have a higher rail section. So we're going to go through that evaluation to determine, whether it's cost effective or not.
But no additional walkway on the
No.
outside?
Wouldn't be creating any additional walkway.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman?
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Betzinger?
Yes.
And that carries 6-0, thank you. Item F this evening is waiver of bid and approval of water meter replacement program, meter and supplies purchase, in the amount of $376,500. Go ahead.
This is similar to something you've approved in the past. This, again, is due to the lead time on products. This would actually be the meters for next fiscal year to keep this, this process going. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a question. If this is for next fiscal year, are we just taking that, how are we doing that as far as accounting?
Justin will make it work.
I will make it work, of course. Because of the lead time, the budget for next year does include these meters. It's taking 4 to 5 months to get the meters, so we will not have them before the end of this fiscal year.
Got it.
By ordering them now, we're probably saving money as well, in potentially. They're not gonna go
Potentially.
down in cost, let's be honest.
Ordering now, we're paying when we get them.
Yes.
Okay, and so when we get them, that's, okay.
Any issue with storage? Should they come in early?
I don't believe so. I mean, we did that we ordered in bulk the first time.
Right, I
and-
remember we had talked about, it. I just didn't,
Yeah.
something happens and, the truck shows up. We have somewhere safe and secure to house this.
Yeah, your basement, because they'll start putting them in right away, I'm guessing. They'll escalate them.
Each of you take 100 home with you and hold them till we need them.
I did have a couple minutes to talk to Mark in regards to the meters. They come in on a pallet, all shrink wrapped together and everything. And so they've been storing them and haven't had any issues with enough space or whatever, so.
Perfect. In case you guys missed that, Guyer made a motion.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion on that? And this is a waiver of bid, so we do need a supermajority. So, call roll.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Betzinger.
Yes.
And we got it. 6-0, thank you. All right, moving on to items for discussion this evening is Montgomery Park. And we have with us Greg Sagan this evening, who's going to walk through the park. But I believe, is somebody kicking it off or just directly to Greg?
I can introduce him, but
Okay.
I think we can go.
I kind of already did that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I mean, you did what I was going to do, so. Take one of these down, pass it around. Yeah,
How you doing, Greg?
I mean, we've talked in the past about the improvements. Greg's here tonight. He's done a lot of great work on working on the design and what it could look like, and that's why we have him here to walk you through it, so. Hope you'll be suitably impressed.
So north is to the right.
Okay.
On this one.
Okay. Good evening. Again, my name is Greg Sagan. I'm a landscape architect and president of Signature Design Group with offices in Naperville. We've had the pleasure to work with staff for about the past 1 year now on preliminary design of a variety of spaces as part of Montgomery Park. Those spaces include the design of a multi-purpose park stage and park pavilion, big enough to host Montgomery Fest, big enough to host Montgomery Fest, but small enough to provide for the intimate needs of a park setting, such as a sitting area, small concert performance stage, and things such as that. Also included in our design work is a Veterans Memorial and Plaza, and remembering all the events of the last couple of years, a service professional memorial and plaza. As part of our scope, we're also renovating the existing WPA stone plaza and stone walls along the river and trying to incorporate that into other park improvements. Staff was adamant about that site currently is kind of removed from the overall park. It's a very interesting site, a lot of history tied to the mill, and the goal is to incorporate that back into the park and better relate that to the park. So we're going to do that with several elements in the design that we'll look at this evening. Also, there's going to be some miscellaneous tree removal, tree replacement work, landscaping, and site lighting enhancements, all as part of this project. And then finally, on a separate but parallel project, we assisted staff with the design of some native shoreline restoration along the Fox River, and I believe the village has been fortunate enough to achieve ComEd grant funding for that project, which will move forward shortly, I believe. So on the screen currently is the base survey base provided by EEI. The thing to point out on this survey base as you look at it is the dark blue line. You'll look at the top plan and focusing in more on the center left portions of that top plan. That's the park site that we're currently working on within the scope of this improvement. The dark blue line is the floodway associated with the Fox River, and the light blue line is the 100-year floodplain, also associated with the river. As you can see, the floodway encompasses about 60% of our site, the floodplain 100% of our site. I point these two elements out because this will have probably impact as we get into final design with stormwater permitting and permits, so just an understanding that may affect final designs, how design changes or may change from preliminary just based on some of these criterion components. We're also making certain assumptions on pavements and finishes associated with these permitting needs. And then finally, on the plan view, just to the left of the circular walkway configuration, you'll notice a line that runs north and south. Right where I have my cursor is a 36-inch sanitary sewer, an old legacy sewer from Fox Metro, which unfortunately falls right at the very edge or the limits of our proposed design stage and pavilion. So it's going to provide opportunities as we get into final designs on how we handle that existing condition, that sanitary sewer and easement. So there's going to be some opportunities on the site as we move forward, but overall it's a beautiful site with a lot of potential for us. So this plan is an enlargement just of the south end of the park site. The highlighted areas are the proposed plaza areas that we'll be discussing in a minute. During the design process, it became very evident that a combined permanent structure was not working. It just wasn't big enough to provide all the needs and the size for Montgomery Fest, but it was getting too large to be the intimate structure we wanted for the park site, to provide just for park performances, little band concerts, and overall just a park sitting area. Also consideration was the success of last year's Montgomery Festival and the mobile stage that was used. It was the first time that larger mobile stage was used in the position that it was located, and it was very highly successful and very well received by the festival. It provided real concert-like atmosphere for the park. It provided a larger elevated stage, great visibility, great acoustics, and it's really provided an excellent performance lighting as well within the overall confines. Stages like that also are the preferred stage that most bands in this area during festivals are looking for. I find myself, actually on a project a couple of years ago, removing a permanent old legacy stage structure to accommodate a concrete pad that would facilitate the mobile stage to come in. So definitely the trend in concert music going forward. So what we needed on this design was a hybrid solution, something that provided a flexible park pavilion, but still could provide and accommodate the mobile stage. So how do we do that? The plan in front of you shows, and if I can find the cursor, in this area is our base design solution for the park. What this shows in tan view is a 24 by 36 foot paver pad platform. Okay, this will serve for the base, for the facility, for the improvements, for the park area. This platform currently would slope from back to front, so we're going to elevate the front edge of the platform with a limestone wall, a short knee wall, to pick up on the elements of the Wpa Plaza using a similar stone style laid in a similar coursing and manner. This would be a mortared stone wall and then would feature large radial steps extending out the front to the park. On this platform during normal park days and park usage, there likely be picnic tables, and then if they were going to have band concerts, they would move the tables aside and have an opportunity for small band concerts. To cover this area, or to provide a roof structure for it, we're contemplating fabric sails, colorful fabric sails to create a protection from weather and UV elements, but also add a little bit of life and color to the park site. In the upper left-hand corner is an enlargement detail showing how we transformed this pad. I talked about a flexible pad that needed to move into a mobile stage pad. So what happens is the fabric canopy sails are removed, and the mobile stage is backed in to sit on top of the paver platform. What's shown in white and outlined in black is the actual size of this mobile stage you used last year in its fully expanded condition. So as you see, it would sit on top of the paver pad with the stone knee wall in front of it framing the foreground. Button challenge. So what this looks like in elevation, this is an artistic rendering of the mobile stage sitting on that platform as viewed from the lawn, the audience in the lawn. In the foreground, you'll see the stone knee wall, again, picking up the detail of the Wpa Plaza, the radial concrete steps coming out to the audience. The stone wall provides a nice foreground, and then the mobile stage moved in its fully extended position on top of the paver pad. You'll see the mill in the background and the existing trees to the side, which are being evaluated for their condition. This is for Montgomery days. Now, once Montgomery days are over, the mobile stage would back out. The mobile stage would back out. The plaza would be covered with our fabric tent coverings, and then this area for the next 360 days would provide the function for the Montgomery Park as a small picnic area, providing for small band opportunities or elements such as that. These shade canopy structures come in a variety of colors and shapes, different arrangements and configurations, and also different orientations in pure spacing. This example is probably closest to what we're currently contemplating. If you look at the lower three sails that I'm circling right now with the cursor, the audience would be viewing the stage in front, so this would likely be the front of the stage. This gives us a very wide pure spacing, maximum visibility to the performance beyond, and then the likely three sails above would provide the cover and the cover for this area. These sails are warranted for 10 years. They tell me they last 20, come in a variety of colors, and provide full weather and UV protection for the space.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
The layout of the mobile stage on the permeable pavers with the, excuse me, on here, yeah, go back to that other one. This one here. The extensions of that stage, I see the skirting in front, but the extensions on the left and the right, is that the permeable paver area, is it wide enough to support even the left and right extensions of that stage?
In full extension, as you saw in plan view, if I go back another one, at the very top, you'll see it just hangs off of the permeable pavers at the far end.
Okay, yep, sorry, I should have seen that, and I didn't. I apologize.
Now, again, at preliminary design, we'll look at the support and the bearing needs on that full extension. If we need to extend that paver pad there or work out the geometry a little bit, that can be easily accommodated. It's not bearing a lot of weight. Those extensions don't cover. The internal pegs carry all the weight of the structure. Those outriggers have very little load bearing on them, but it's
When
a
we
good
brought the
observation.
stage in this year, we came off
Mill Street.
this sidewalk on Mill Street, and the grade coming off that sidewalk into that area kind of comes down. It was a little difficult to get that stage in properly just because of the grade changes. I don't want to see that stage come into the pavers and hit those pavers at the wrong angle and scuff those pavers.
He was
in.
dragging a little when he went in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as part of this consideration, that would be elevated. We'd get a better transition grade between the Mill Street sidewalk and the stage platform. And then part of this grading to elevate the front would impact the transitional grading around, so we would eliminate that up and down there and provide for a better platform for the stage. Now, I'm not telling you, once that mobile stage comes in there, he's probably going to have to jockey back and forth a little bit to get right where he wants to be. And then
And-
hopefully
and-
this year it opens up to the right side and, you know.
A lot of it might have been operator error
Yeah.
in that time, so, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Would the shades be taken in during the winter?
They recommend bringing the shades in during the winter. They don't have to be, but they recommend for durability that you
Sure.
remove them during the winter.
The sails look really nice, and I know that that product is a really nice product from weather UV protection. However, the vandalism on fabric sails in unmonitored parks is pretty high, the ratio, which is why you don't see them in public park settings very often. You see them at recreation facilities where they're in a controlled environment where it's behind a locked gate, basically, at an aquatic park or a splash pad or those types of things. But I don't see them very often in unmonitored parks because of the propensity for kids to slice one with a knife, to start one on fire, the kids being kids doing what they do sometimes.
I mean, that's a fair observation. You know, our hope was, given the proximity to the Mill Street and River Street and the traffic, that the likelihood of vandalism might be less. Also, the height of these, we envision these sails to be up 15 feet in the air, and the only way to access them is skinning up a steel pole. Not to say kids won't find a way, because in my previous life, I was a park superintendent, so I know what you're saying. But I would think they'd really have to work on it.
They
Wouldn't
do,
be
that's just a concern.
Yeah.
So going in, if that's the design this group wants to move forward with, understand we will be replacing those well before their life expectancy's up.
Are there any other parks, municipal areas that you've had these installed on that we could actually see? And I'm on their website, kind of looking, there's different shapes, different styles.
Yes.
Rather than multi-pieces of fabric, they actually have some that are one full
Single
piece
piece, yeah.
covering. But a way to see what they look like in 5 or 6 years after being out in the rain, are they gonna dull? Are they gonna look worn and
I'm sure the color
unappreciable?
will fade a little bit over time. You know, I think that's a valid point. The single-piece canopies you talked about typically have more structural components to it. It's kind of like a frame, kind of like a tent frame underneath it. So that, when not covered, is a little bit less attractive. So these simple poles kind of disappear when the cover isn't there. I can go back to the manufacturer, though, and get a list from him of installations in this area and their age, so you can go out and look at the canopies themselves now.
I would really like to see something like this in actual use, if it's a possibility.
One thing staff also inquired about, and I don't believe it's possible, is the ability of removable support piers. Since these are carrying a great load and bearing, I'm not sure that they come like a sleeve, if you will, in the ground. But I've also got to call into the manufacturer's rep about that, if there's any alternatives that could utilize something like that. And the consideration is primarily for Montgomery Fest, and would be the lead front two poles that are set off in front of the stage, split up. Okay? Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to the memorial plazas. So on the screen in front of you is a photograph of the location of the Veterans Memorial Plaza. It's located at the north edge of a tree grove on an elevated ridge between the trail and the river. It's a very prominent location, and it has excellent visibility and a large grass panel adjacent to it that would support visitors to Veterans Day activities and ceremonies. The concept plan features a large brick paver patio, or plaza, excuse me, could be permeable pavers depending on permitting, accent banding throughout. The backdrop would be a low stone knee or seat wall, freestanding seat wall, again, using stone similar to the WDA plazas. The plaza would be backed up with 3 flagpoles asymmetrically located to provide for the predominant view and photographing opportunities of the memorial. The memorial itself would be set on a round circular concrete pad memorial court. There would be one bench seating and a trash receptacle associated with it. One thing to note on the limestone seat wall, it would provide wonderful seating and viewing opportunities to the Memorial Plaza, as well as to the back right over the river, which is a tremendous outlook and view. There'd also be finally site lighting incorporated into this plaza. As far as the memorial itself, a vertical memorial is contemplated for this plaza. It may have the name of the plaza and a general statement and recognition on the front side, leaving the back side available for local stories, for local servicemen, local conflicts, or local involvement from the VFW, and interest in artifacts for the community on this Memorial Plaza. As we advance forward, this is the second plaza location. This is the plaza for the first responders, healthcare workers, and educational professionals. It's located a little bit south of the Veterans Plaza. It's directly underneath the canopy of two large maple shade trees. It's a very quiet, intimate, somewhat reflective space. Again, also between the path and the Fox River behind it. It basically, in this photograph, would fall into that grass panel in between those two trees. The concept plan, similar to the Veterans Plaza, contemplates brick pavers, possibly permeable if we need it for permitting, accent banding, creating the central circular court. The plaza itself is semicircular, surrounded with a backdrop of the low stone seat wall. The plaza area, memorial area, is flanked by two benches and also the stone piers from the wall. This memorial plaza, or this memorial itself, is contemplated to be horizontal in nature, perhaps honoring police, fire, and paramedics on one side, doctors, nurses, teachers, and educational professionals on the other. Plaques and text could be integrated into the memorial to tell the story of the last few years and these heroes' involvement and their activities. Additionally, this memorial considers a stepstone base, which would be a platform for individuals coming, laying their personal memorials or artifacts while they visit the memorial. Also, lighting would be provided as part of this memorial space as well. In closing, one important note are both the memorial plazas and memorials I've discussed are conceptual only in nature. They will be developed, refined, and finalized through the working with the stakeholders, the various stakeholders involved in each of these plaza areas, and those stakeholders will have much input in the overall selection and final design of these spaces. So I wanted to point that out. With that, I will turn it over to any other questions or answer, any other questions you might have.
Thanks, sir. Thoughts? Questions for staff or Greg?
Sorry. I have a question about the proposed lighting. As you said, this is conceptual right now. Would we be considering solar-powered lighting? Or, I know we have some of the electric out there when we have Montgomery Fest. I'm just curious, are we pulling off that electric, or would we go with solar?
Having it using electricity, not being solar.
Okay, thanks.
That would actually probably help with Montgomery Fest and then needs for running all the cords everywhere. We could strategically place some power with this project, right?
Yeah, I know Mark's not here, but I would hope that would be the case, is that we could upgrade the electric at the site, whatever we needed to now to get this incorporated, to light these two, and then prepare for the stage in the future and any other site lighting that we have contemplated there. Maybe just one thought that I had. I don't think this is something that we've talked about as a board previously, but we submitted a few years ago for a grant through the capital bill that was approved. Representative Kifowit helped us with that. I do have a meeting set up later this week with her to kind of go over this plan, since she was so helpful in getting the $200,000. But I guess bigger picture is, this is a park that we use it's a Fox Valley Park District park. But we utilize this so much for our events, and flipping the fest this year was a game changer for down here. And so the thought was, doing something that it can be, utilized every day by residents in the park, but also, fits our needs for the fest. When it comes to the plazas, I think the Veteran Plaza is a, no-brainer based on what we submitted the grant for, to honor our heroes. But the second one is kind of more personal, I think, for all of us, is to something that we can, it's been a difficult several years, and ensuring that we're, remembering the folks that really had it hard for those last few years, to keep things going in our community. So I feel very strongly about all three of these aspects, and the part down at the front. But I really want to hear your comments and questions tonight. I do know that the DCEO grant is ready and available to reimburse us once we're done. But what are your thoughts?
I have two questions. On the first responders portion, or the monument, many that I've seen have, not many, a couple that I have seen, have been able to obtain portions of steel from New York as part of the first responders portion. I thought that was rather impactful. Could we find out if it's possible to obtain any of that type of material to incorporate in the first responders portion?
We can check.
Okay. And then two, with this being a Park District park, has their board approved this as far as how it's in tandem maintenance and?
So you guys get to see it first. But we did have a meeting last week or the week before with the Park District, with Jim Pilmer and Jeff Palmquist to kind of go over what an agreement would look like here. I know that you're in talks with Palmquist on it.
Yes, I've talked to Jeff since our meeting. Jim and Jeff are both very excited about the project. They would like to, I think they'll be talking to their board about it in February. And we are started working on an IGA that would help solidify all this.
And the hope too would be that the IGA includes a liquor license that we can use for the festival going forward.
What about us just taking ownership of the park?
That wasn't their initial, Tom's shaking his head really hard. No. We thought that would be part of the conversation, and Jim Pilmer felt like just an agreement for maintenance ought to be enough. So no transfer of property anywhere.
And I mean,
Will they
Why-
have?
why are you
Will
saying
they
that,
have?
Tom?
an
Tom's shaking his head, but,
Streets, police, water.
yeah, we're not in the parks business.
There's no reason,
Right.
the agreement sounds like there's good cooperation, conversation. Parks do parks, villages do village work. We've
Yeah.
got a nice agreement. It would be unnecessary to jump into turf management and all the other things that come along when you start owning this type of property.
Sure, and we may end up having, I don't know how they would like it, we may end up having to do some landscape maintenance. I don't know what we would be able to negotiate, but I understand that.
Well, then it becomes a question of, okay, Fox Valley Park District has numerous parks in Montgomery. They're not, well, let's talk about Stewart. They have Stewart's Sports Complex, right?
Yeah.
That, Chief, how many times have we been over at Stewart?
Well, I'm sure he has that. What's the point?
So, okay, if we do this, or when we do this, and say we do that canopy, who's gonna be responsible for patrolling the park? Is it gonna be Fox Valley Park District?
Yeah, it's their
Or is
park.
it gonna be Montgomery?
That doesn't change. The boundaries don't change. The park's still the park.
And we still patrol the entire, I'm sure we patrol the area now, like, it doesn't change, but,
Well, and, I'm going back to 10 years ago when we had all the issues at the park at the end of Griffin. We had one hell of a time getting Fox Valley Park District officers to get over there to handle stuff.
yeah, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Fox Valley Park District let all their officers go during COVID and
No.
are now in the process of rehiring?
I'm not sure, I'm also not sure how it totally ties into this, but I will say, to kind of step in on a positive note, we, in the 12 years that I've been here, we have never had a more positive relationship than we do right now with the Fox Valley Park District, working with them on Stewart. In the meeting, they talked about the park out west that they plan on doing themselves this year. We talked about pedestrian bridge over Route 30 at some point. And, I mean, the Stewart stuff, I mean, everything that what I appreciate about the current leadership of the Park District is their ability to work, you know, beyond Aurora. They put so much effort into reaching out into Montgomery and North Aurora because we are all their Park District. So I appreciate the relationship that we currently have with them, which is why we're trying to ink a nice
I'm not saying we don't
intergovernmental
have a
agreement
good relationship with them.
Right.
You know, this people that go over and use Stewart, I'm sure they have a great time. What does Stewart traffic do to, ask the residents on the west side what the Stewart Park traffic does to 30 on the weekends.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we
too.
have a great relationship with them,
Sure.
but I'm trying to be realistic about this.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's an issue in the park, who's going? Is it Fox Valley Park District or is it Montgomery? And if we're going to patrol that park, why don't we own it?
Because we don't own parks.
Well,
We
so
patrol them.
they're not going to require that we take it, and we certainly don't want to offer to take it. The bathrooms, this and that, we've talked about things like that. Chief, just one clarification question, if you have, is if somebody were to dial 911 for vandalism at this park, who responds?
We would initially respond, and then we basically turn that over to the park.
Got it. And you would do that today? If somebody called to the park, we'd arrive, whoever arrives first, and then turn it over to them?
Was I right in my assumption and me saying that Fox Valley Park District let all their officers go?
I do know they've been reconstituted recently. I'm not sure if they let them all go. I know they went down skeleton staff and they had their parks closed. But as far as I know, they're reconstituted and working as they want to.
Yeah. Okay.
You
Okay.
mentioned something about the WPA Plaza.
Yes.
What does WPA stand for again?
Work Progress Administration. It was back in the early 1930s, part of, in conjunction or at similar times with the CCC. And they did a lot of, similar to days today, a lot of unemployed people looking for public improvements that could be done by skilled labor. So the government hired a lot of unemployed people to do improvements. Many of them were recreational improvements in state parks, in municipalities along rivers, many of the low-head dams and limestone improvements that you'll see in and around the area oftentimes were associated with the Work Progress Administration or the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps.
Okay.
This work also includes revamping, revitalizing the area down by right along the river's edge there. I noticed it was.
Yes, yes.
And
Much of that would be handled under
the river there.
Yes, much of that, you know, I believe staff has removed a lot of the weed trees that are growing in there, and a large portion of the shoreline naturalization grant that staff has obtained handles that shoreline in that area. And then adjacent to that, or in addition to that, the WPA Plaza area would be worked on.
Great, thank you. I also have concerns, as Tom did, with the canvas canopy and the ability, and maybe there's an ability to take them down and put them up when we have events going on, you know, because there's some shade and some trees in the area. Maybe it's when there's a concert in the park, they go back up. They don't need to be up all the time.
And I think we look at the aesthetics of the poles that are used when you mount them. If you go on the company's website, they're they're substantial poles, and I think they could be kind of a, maybe a possible eyesore if they do without those colored sails there. I mean, with the colored sails, the different sails, that brings an aesthetic appeal to it. Without them there, then you just have these metal poles.
Yeah.
So actually, getting that list would be really beneficial now, because if the recommendations are that these aren't up in the wintertime, it would give us the opportunity to go see some of these facilities now with nothing there,
Just to see the support.
to see the support system infrastructure prior to spring
Yeah.
and sales being on them.
And if they have different designs for those pole base, I saw one of those had, the the bolt sticking out with the nut on it. So if they have different design of that. I mean, I think big picture-wise with the sales was to have something that functioned daily, that wasn't a band shell. I think one of my goals for this was that it was not a huge band shell that sat vacant all the time, that, you know, it might feel a little awkward in the park being so big, and you wouldn't utilize it for, let's say, a picnic with your family, and it might look hilarious if you had one guy and a guitar underneath it. So if there's other ways that's not the sales to accomplish something like this, but I think if we're going to do something like this on somebody else's property in a park, this is our park. This is the park that we utilize for all of our special events, and I think staff would like to utilize more in the near future once we get these improvements set. But there is going to be I'm assuming, a long-term maintenance that goes along with it. You know, flowers that we put in, the pavers, that kind of thing, that would all be subject to the IGA. The other thing about the IGA too is, I referenced the solid relationship that we have with the Park District now. I would hope that IGA kind of solidifies some of the handshake deals that we have for the fest. You know, every year we go back and we make sure that certain things are available, or that we're going to do this, really lock in and secure the future for Montgomery Fest down here, the 2 or 3 concerts in the park that we've done in the past, really secure this for the future.
Do we have an idea of time frame that we're looking at, you know, once everything goes through Fox Valley's board, you know, everything kind of gets lined up? What's the anticipated time frame to get started and for the project?
The goal would be to have the performance area in place for Montgomery Fest this year. The memorials, you know, we'd have to look at and see the timing and phasing of those, if they'd be in by then, or if that'd be a sort of a phase 2 of the project.
Okay.
We'd like to have everything set for this year for the fest as far as the performance area.
Right, plus the grant money's kind of sitting there waiting for us to do something. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the grant funding, and we got the email that it's ready. In the first meeting we had with Palmquist from the Park District, he said, well, yeah, you got the earmark. You don't know when the DCO is going to come calling. And then shortly after that, we got the email saying that there's funding there ready for us. So we'd love to capture on that now and have it be a pretty spectacular fest this year.
Like it.
Cool.
And just without the full scope of the land and the layout, you know it, the permanent memorial structures are gonna be there. It doesn't impede on the general carnival setup and where those are
No,
located?
because they're on the east side of the path, so there's really not enough space there other than for some people to sit and watch, and if you look, they're pretty far down from
Okay.
where the stage would be. You know, they're a little bit further down, so, and again, it's conceptual at this point, but we don't ever really have any rides, you know, in that area. Doesn't really support it, it's a little too close to the river.
Yeah, we tried to take that into consideration when we looked at the different locations, knowing what the layout of the fest is generally.
All right, so where do we go from here then? So this is the preliminary presentation. What's the timeline to going out for bid or final approval? You know what I'm saying, between now and construction, what does it look like?
I mean, we would work up final plans then based on this, and I mean, like I said, we'd like to be able to bid, you know, to be ready to start construction when the season allows to have time, so we'll move forward with working on the IGA, because we really need to get that sort of
And
in
EEI
place.
also has to do some floodplain stuff associated with this too. Okay.
So we'll kind of put a timeline together that we can get to you now that we know.
And in that timeline, we'll include the sales, some places we can go look at them, and then, you know, if staff has any other ideas coming out of this that we can work on.
Okay.
And as we go into final design, understanding there's going to be permitting, so that's going to have a time requirement to it. Also, the stakeholders meetings. I mean, I believe we want to thoroughly vet and include the stakeholders, so there's going to be some time involved there. So the design process, in the final design process, we'll put it to task, we'll do it as quickly as possible. But there is still a fair amount of work, because we are just at the preliminary concept level here, and to get it to biddable final plans is going to take a bit of work still. And obviously with the engineering consultant also on board. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, nothing else for discussion? Anything new or unfinished?
I've got something.
Go ahead.
Actually, it's a question for you. While we were talking about Montgomery Park, you had mentioned something about with the Foxfly Park District and a new park out west. Do you know where that is?
Yeah, that's the Blackberry West
Okay.
Park
On
property
Venetian
that
Way?
they own. They're currently working on a plan that they haven't, I haven't seen it, they haven't, but they would work through public meetings this spring, a grant submittal, and then they have funding earmarked for a project, a two-phase project out there.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
So I offered up Village Hall here in the police department for their public meetings, so we can make sure to get residents from that area out to that park. But it is amazingly comforting to know that they just accepted, ownership of that large parcel, and that they have plans and want to it's not a neighborhood park, it would be like a community park with all the, bangs and whistles that go with that. So stay tuned.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, anybody have anything else? I don't know if you guys saw this in the notes, but Jeff and I and Pete, I think, I'm trying to remember who's on that call, had a call with DWC, very positive call to talk about the legislation that we need to get passed in order to join and get a vote with the DuPage Water Commission. The staff there kind of asked me a couple of questions on how important it is for us to have a vote on that. And I said that is entirely the reason why we selected this option. So it's very important to my board. So the DWC board met the next day, approved the parameters for legislation that either has been introduced or will be introduced in this spring session to see what they do down there. And I think we have a sponsor and co-sponsor in both the House and the Senate at this point. So proceeding as we thought, but I just wanted to report back on that. Anything down there? All right. All right, future meetings, you can see those. We may cancel the committee of the whole meeting on the 22nd. Otherwise, we'll be here on February 14th and the 28th. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Betzinger? Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling? Trustee Bauer? Bauman?
Yes.
Sorry.
And we're adjourned. Thank you.
I just sent you, I remember you started